As you've no doubt heard by now, the U.S. Supreme Court handed down a mixed decision regarding the question of whether the government can ask about citizenship status in the next census. The court said the Trump administration did not violate two clauses of the Constitution by including the citizenship question, but it also said the Secretary of Commerce's explanation for including the question seemed, quote, contrived and was essentially a smokescreen for unstated political motives. To consider the impact of the census and the court's decision, I'm joined at the table by former state representative and line regular Daniel Foley. Laura Sanchez Reve is here. She's a line regular and director of government relations for Affirm Incorporated. Frequent guest at our table, someone we're always glad to have back, former state senator from Albuquerque, Dede Feldman. And for his first time joining us, Michael Barrio. He's director of advocacy at Prosperity Works. Welcome, Michael. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So here's the question we're talking about. Are you a U.S. citizen, Dede? For census purposes, that's interesting info, but it also is a loaded question because folks with questionable immigration status might not answer, leading to an undercount. That's a very New Mexico thing, by the way, too. So how did you take the decision this morning about how this all went down?
Well, I was happy that it was remanded back to a lower court where the new evidence about this Republican operative's communications with the Trump administration could be considered. Mm-hmm. And I think it is extremely important. It goes to Justice Roberts' comments, and it was Justice Roberts that said the idea that the Justice, or the Commerce Department, I guess, at the behest of the Justice Department was touting was that this was to protect people under the Voting Rights Act. Mm-hmm. Seemed very contrived, and in fact, merits consideration of this evidence. Mm-hmm. from this Hoffeller, I think his name is, right. Hoffeller. Yeah. And I think the whole thing is very much a test of the court. Mm-hmm. Is the court going to be kind of, if my view is if they had decided that this U.S. citizenship question could go on there without much question, it would be a travesty. It would bring us back to the days of Gore v. Bush and show completely that the Supreme Court has become very partisan. And I think that's what Justice Roberts is thinking of, and it provided a very easy out to send it back to the lower court to consider this new evidence.
Almost predictable in a way. When you really, now that it's happened, you can almost see it, Laura, very clearly. That's an easy route to take, to kick it back down, let them figure it out. But in your mind, was there a balance of the considerations here in the decision? Did you hear enough being said on both sides for this decision?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't really see it as a mixed decision. I know you introduced it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the discussion was mixed. I think the types of issues that they talked about and the initial reason that I think the plaintiffs were arguing that it should be overturned, that it should not be included as a census question, was something that they did not necessarily— Which is not going to be now, by the way. That's right, that they did not necessarily grasp onto. But ultimately, the outcome is that they made it clear that this is not going to be, they remanded it back for a fuller discussion.
Right.
But they basically drew the line. They said this is not appropriate. And I think it's consistent with, in 50 years we haven't had a question on citizenship. Mm-hmm. So we're not talking about a partisan issue. Mm-hmm. This has gone through many administrations, the Bush administration, the Reagan administration.
That's right.
Many Republicans that have not felt it necessary to add this for many reasons, very valid reasons. And I think because of the huge impact to states like New Mexico that this would have, it would have a serious chilling effect on people who already are difficult to find, and to be able to get them to count and feel integrity in the system.
That's right. And
not feel like they're being targeted. And so I think that it was the correct decision. For me as an attorney and just watching the Supreme Court and the makeup of it now, it's interesting that it's sort of predictable that Clarence Thomas, Brett Kavanaugh, Justice Gorsuch, and Justice Alito would be on one side.
Right.
And it's I think understandable that Justice Sotomayor, Kagan, Ginsburg, and Breyer would be on one side. Mm-hmm. So you clearly see now that it's Justice Roberts who is the deciding vote. Right. And so he ends up being the swing on any of these issues. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I think he definitely looked at it from the jurisprudence And I think that the pretextual issue of the reason that the Commerce Secretary, and they said it very clearly, they felt that the Commerce Secretary's reason for including it was pretextual,
Right.
which means that it's just an excuse, it's not a valid reason.
Right.
And they also didn't follow the Administrative Procedures Act in making this change.
Thanks for bringing
So
that into, that's
procedurally,
right.
they didn't do
That's
it
right.
correctly. So I think regardless of the politics, you know, as justices, they have to follow the law and have to follow what precedent has said as far as the Administrative Procedures Act. And so I think it was a good outcome.
I appreciate you taking a little time on that. That explanation's worth it. It's interesting. Michael, I do want to swing back to another thought, though. Some of the punditry that I heard this morning made an interesting point that perhaps the damage is already done when you talk about immigrant communities. That this has gone far enough that there's now almost a permanent desire to pull back and not participate. You know what I mean? So there's going to be some work that needs to be done after all this dust settles a little bit here to get folks re-engaged about the census. But going on the decision, you know, are you in agreement with it, or is it something
I am.
that? Okay.
You know, I agree with both everyone that's spoken so far.
Yeah.
I think that in a lot of ways the damage has already been done. I think that it's going to take a lot to repair that damage. I don't believe that there's a lot of existing trust prior to this becoming a major issue. And so the initiatives that are underway right now, especially in the state of New Mexico, to make sure that everyone is counted, and to make sure that people understand how important it is that people are counted. I think it's a good thing that it's been mandated to a lower court. I think that we have a lot more thinking to do about this issue and how we actually address it. And to the points made earlier, it does feel like it's particularly politically motivated.
Yeah. Daniel, interestingly, there was another decision this morning. I do want you to talk about the census thing, but we were also talking about redistricting as well. We had an interesting decision there. Did you have an early thought on that? I mean, part of the punditry again was thinking that perhaps the court was thinking we don't want to open up the floodgates to all kinds of redistricting, battles here. My question would be, why not? That's what you're there for. But regardless of that, what was your sense of that decision? What's the impact?
Well,
there?
the Supreme Court's continued to support, incumbency protection.
Right.
And so whatever you got to do to keep incumbents in, incumbents are for it. The courts seem to say we're okay with it. They've made it very clear that you can't do it for partisan purposes. Right. You can't say, if I'm in charge, I'm going to keep every Republican incumbent, and then I'm going to stick it to every Democrat.
But we know
If it's an incumbency protection plan,
Right.
they're for it. And I would just tell you, you'd be amazed as someone who's gone through redistricting. It's not as partisan as you think it is, because there's a lot of people that are just happy to have their seat, and once the districts are drawn and they're protected, they'll walk off into the district, they'll walk off into the distance, and all you need is 51%. So I mean, once you save 5 Republicans in the House when I was there, done. It's a finished deal. I mean, no one's going to fight. You can fight all you want,
That's right.
but you're not going to have enough votes to overturn it. So it doesn't surprise me that the courts continue to protect incumbents. You got to know where your bread's buttered.
There you go.
And that's the good thing. On the immigration question, I think the big thing is something you led with, which says the court ruled they did not violate the Constitution by putting the question on there. So, I mean, it's not the court's decision, in my opinion, or the court's job to decide the politics of things. That's what the voters decide. That's how the electorate goes out and votes. It's the court's job to say this is legal or not legal. And I just think it just goes to show you that Justice Roberts is more concerned with being, a favorite at the tea parties and the coffee shops than he is at doing what his job is to do. It doesn't matter whether you agree with him or disagree with him. Look, there was plenty of decisions that went against conservatives and Republicans when they didn't have, when President Obama was in charge. But again, it's just like we talk about in New Mexico, and we'll talk about some things later on. Elections have consequences.
That's right.
And
let me get Dee Dee in here real quick on redistricting. I hear you on your point. I didn't mean to cut you off. Please, I thought of that. Is there a New Mexico specific bounce here for this decision?
Well, I think there's going to be a bounce throughout the country, and unsurprisingly, I disagree with Dan. I think this was a bad decision. I think that it will increase, and it wasn't really about incumbency protection, it was about partisan gerrymandering. And the court has now okayed partisan gerrymandering, which will increase the partisan divide. When the Republicans are in charge, they're going to draw more districts. When the Democrats are in charge, they'll draw more districts that favor them. And the victim is the individual voter. Because if the Supreme Court is not upholding one person, one vote,
That's right.
who
The whole thing
is?
unravels.
Who is?
Did you oppose all the gerrymandering when we were in the legislature?
I-
We had
I-
districts that went from, like my district went from Roswell and butted up against Kenny Martinez and Grants, and yet
I
somehow
think-
it made sure that we kept an incumbency protection, which
But yet
always
somehow
seems-
Roswell has like 5 different
Right.
representatives.
No, which I'm not saying is a good thing
Well,
either.
I think that we need, I think that we
You
need.
got to do that
and
if you want to dilute the Republican vote. So you can't let them all be in one place. You got to
To,
sprinkle
to
them out.
solve this, I think we need an independent redistricting commission so that we take it out of the hands of the politicians and who are now drawing and selecting their own voters, and let the voters once again select their representatives.
made
Because
it-
that independent commission will get appointed, how, by lottery? No,
That's a
the
tough one.
politicians are going to put their guys in. I mean, it's just.
I got to
it
move on.
is.
Unfortunately, we got to the next subject. But interesting, another punditry point this morning was made. If we voted almost like mandatory, like Australia, we get like a 90% turnout. None of this stuff would even be a discussion. So part of this is on us too, as well. This redistricting thing. So we'll be back with this group in just a minute. But after the break, we take you to a rally in Santa Fe for President Trump.